You're listening to Spellbound. Welcome to episode 23 of Spellbound. I'm Julian Smith. Spellbound is now a CastBox original. You can still listen to it anywhere else you typically listen to podcasts, but check out CastBox today and see what's making it the fastest growing and highest rated podcast app for both iOS and Android. All right, I'm here today with Ramona Pringle. Ramona,
hello.
Thanks for being here today.
Oh, you're welcome. This is great.
And also Andrew Rader, again.
I'm back.
You're the most regular guest on this show. So Ramona, you're an interesting person. You're a producer, an actress, a journalist, and a professor.
I'm more of those things now and less of some of those other things now. Actress is something that was sort of an early career of mine. These days, I'm a professor. I'm a professor of media and interaction design. I actually run an incubator at the university as well. I'm at Ryerson University in Toronto and run a lab there called the Transmedia Zone, which is innovation in media journalism, sort of where technology touches on all of the kind of creative industries. And then I do a weekly column for CBC on technology, but not sort of the gadget side of it, more like how is this touching our lives? How is it changing our relationship with each other and the world around us?
So you guys are actually studying the effects of technology on a social level.
Exactly.
That's cool.
And what's CBC? Because I'm Canadian, but most people aren't.
CBC is Canadian broadcast. It's like the BBC, only in Canada.
Okay.
Has, great national radio, great online presence. I have to say, one of the things that I love about the radio column that I do is that it's syndicated, which means that every week I speak to 20 different markets. And when you talk about technology stories, I think this is really part of why I do it. What I really enjoy about it is so often tech stories feel like it's one and done. And, it comes out of New York, it comes out of Silicon Valley, it comes out of Toronto. And it's a sort of massive story where the assumption is that it touches everyone the same way. And it really doesn't. And so one of the stations that I speak to is Iqaluit in the very, very, very far north. I speak to Vancouver, I speak to Ottawa. And so you've got, to put it in American terms, that's like speaking to Washington and your political hub, and then speaking to California, where there's, one sort of political bent or different interests, maybe more creative, speaking to New York. You're speaking to these different markets with different hosts and understanding that, far up north, they have got connectivity issues. They've got broadband issues, that there's sort of different cultural factors, different environmental factors. And that's really fascinating, just understanding that the nuance of a story changes depending on who you're talking to.
It's the equivalent of northern Alaska in Iqaluit, basically.
Right. Yeah. Very far north.
And you've got your bachelor's with honors in film and video production from York University and your master's in interactive media from NYU, right?
Yeah. I went through a program at NYU called ITP, the Interactive Telecommunications Program, which was definitely something I would do again if I ever got time to just sink 2 more years into school. That was an amazing, amazing program.
Right. And I guess Andrew having a PhD from MIT, that makes me the dumbest person in the room. Also the only American. I guess it shouldn't be a surprise that I'm the dumbest person in the room because I'm American.
I'm waiting for Andrew to say something.
I just realized neither of you are allowed to laugh at that joke that I just made.
Right, we're too polite.
It's okay for you to laugh at that.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Julian.
Yeah,
I'm also very sorry.
We're all sorry Julian is American. So today we're talking about the hottest commodity on the planet, that is your personal data. Seems like you've got a lot to say about that, Ramona.
Yeah, absolutely I do. I mean, I think that it's one of those topics where every single week there seems to be multiple headlines, there seems to be multiple controversies, and just really thinking about it, I think for people, for the public to be thinking about what our data means or data means, who is profiting off of it, what sort of control we have over it or should have over it, what it means for our kids and implications there. I just think there's so much there. And I should say, part of my approach to all of this is making these topics relevant and accessible to everybody, not just the people who work in tech, not just the people who feel like, they're super, super smart and study this and read journals, but everybody, because there's over 2 billion people on Facebook, which means that those 2 billion people ought to understand the implications of the sort of social exchange, this barter that we're all a part of.
Personal data and privacy is something I'm really passionate about. It's such a fascinating problem because the thing that is driving it all is people's addiction. Like, people are giving up their personal information willingly on like Facebook and Twitter and Instagram because they're addicted. They're just forfeiting all this information about themselves, and then these companies are then in turn turning the people who are forfeiting their information into a product that it's just this endless loop of like being bought and sold. You're basically a slave if you're addicted to these things, and it's no different than, you actually wrote an article on how it's no different than tobacco, and you compared it to the tobacco controversy of the mid-century.
Yeah, interesting. And also, you know, one of the other articles that I wrote that struck a chord, which was almost a year ago now, was looking at how data has become the new oil.
Right.
And when you look at the sort of the most profitable companies in the world, the sort of the old guard of what was profitable has been displaced by Google and Facebook and Apple. And, you know, these are the companies that are worth just billions and
trillions for Apple.
Trillions. And they're doing it with, they're doing it with just this, it's so amorphous. It's so hard to wrap our head around what that product is, but it's us, it's our information. And, you know, what do we get out of it? We do get that sort of hit of oxytocin, that feels so good. We get that connection. I think it is very hard for any of us to step away from it because we have such strong desires to connect with each other and to know what each other are doing, to be part of a community that maybe we aren't getting the way we once did in our offline lives. It's fascinating just to see what a valuable commodity data has become, and the fact that other people own us, other people own our data is fascinating. And yeah, I wrote about it, sort of looking at it like the tobacco industry, big tobacco, following the Cambridge Analytica scandal, just wondering, like, when is that moment going to come when we realize, this isn't necessarily that good for us? And there is this, you know, huge industry that's profiting off of this. You know, when we think about cigarettes, when we think about smoking now, I think most of us kind of go, ew. But there was a time when, you know, the Marlboro Man was a pop culture figure. When it was, when
everybody wanted to be the Marlboro Man.
Smoking was sexy, and people in, you know, James Dean and all of these, you know, even Breakfast Club, like, it was a thing that people did, and I think weren't questioning. And you just wonder, we don't know how we're going to look back at this moment in 20 years.
Yeah, I'm not sure that people necessarily care if their data is being used in these ways. Facebook, we had this scandal just a month or two ago when it was revealed the full extent at which people could micro-target with ads, and the Cambridge Analytica scandal. But Facebook got a lot of bad press for a week or two. Its stocks went way down, but they've fully recovered. And I don't think people really cared. I don't think it's really impacted their user base. People have always been subject to ads. And I think the feeling is, why do I care if they're targeting me with ads? In fact, if they're targeting me with ads that you know, appeal to me, then maybe that's actually better. So there's some benefit here.
I totally think you're right. You know, on one hand, I feel like I'm critical of the digital world and the, you know, the world of social media. And yet I love it. I consume it. I don't step away. And I certainly, you know, I'm not anti-tech. I think I'm totally pro-tech. In fact, you know, a lot of the early work that I did, documentary work, journalistic work, was really looking at what that allure is. You know, that we're not addicted to the gadget. We're not addicted to the tech. It is that connection. It is the sort of people on the other side of it. And I think if you look at it with empathy, you understand why we're so drawn to all of this and why we don't want to step away from it. And add on to that the fact that, yeah, you get these great ads that show you exactly what you're looking for. I right now get targeted with fashion that I quite often like, with baby goods that I quite often like. You know, I buy things off of Facebook and Instagram because they know me so well. So I think you're absolutely right. And I think that there was an interesting response in the face of Cambridge Analytica, which was, you know, people saying, well, I'm going to leave the platform. I'm going to change my privacy settings on the platform. I don't think that people
doesn't make a difference.
Going to. Yeah, I don't think that
changing your privacy settings doesn't really do anything.
And
Facebook still has access to all of it, and they use it against you.
Absolutely,
that only changes how other people on the platform can see your information. You're still susceptible to ad targeting and stuff like that. So people are forfeiting their data willingly in exchange for this addiction getting fueled, and then they don't care. Like you said, Andrew, they don't care. So I guess the question is it actually bad?
Well, it's an opportunity. So the reason it exists is because the internet is so different from previous ways people advertise. Like when the printing press came about, people advertised in pamphlets, and then television, and radio. Those are all one to many.